Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 21 of Blue Leadership, the first episode of 2023, with your host, Dennis Nayor. Dennis is a 26-year law enforcement veteran and retired chief from the state of New York. He's also a proud graduate of the 240th session of the FBI National Academy and the 61st session of the FBI LEDA Command Institute. The Blue Leadership video podcast is brought to you by the nationally ranked Master of Science in Law Enforcement and Public Safety Leadership program at the University of San Diego. You can learn more about the LEPSL program at criminaljustice.sandiego.edu. And with that, I'll kick things over to your host to introduce our featured guest. Thanks.
Sarah, thank you. Great to be back starting 2023. And yeah, I can't believe we're at episode number 21. We started these in 2021, and here we are. Today's guest, super excited to have, is Lt Chahmal Kerow of the San Francisco Police Department. Chahmal is a 15-year vet of the department. He worked in patrol, investigations, admin. He's a liaison to the Emergency Management Office, which we'll talk a little bit about. He's an instructor at the Police Academy. He's an adjunct professor on the side, and he has his BA in criminology, and of course his MS, his Master of Science in Law Enforcement and Public Safety Leadership, right here from the University of San Diego. Chahmal, great to have you here.
Dennis, thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, one thing I didn't mention, which I'd love to share, is Chahmal and I met as students as we were going through the program. We didn't know one another. And one of the benefits of this is you meet people from across the country, literally. I'm East Coast, he's West Coast, and we hit it off great. And I got to give a shout out to our friend Scott Morehouse, retired captain from the California Highway Patrol, who worked in the group with us. And Chahmal, correct me if I'm forgetting anything, but boy, we got a lot done and we all hit it off great.
Absolutely. What an amazing opportunity to meet such two amazing leaders that bring a lot of experience in law enforcement. I think we met in March 2020. We were taking a LEPSL 570, correct me if I'm wrong. What was called community organization or something like that.
Right. And we were all on a group project for human trafficking, and it was all random assignments. And it's just one of those things where, the value of collaboration in law enforcement is huge. And it just showed itself. And there's an assignment. We had Scott from the California Highway Patrol, you from San Francisco Police Department. I was the chief in Ithaca at the time. And we were all dealing with our work pressures, but we're all at the same time coordinating schedules, doing this lengthy assignment. And we were doing a lot of laughter at the same time because we all got along great.
Yeah, we made it fun for sure. And one thing that made our group unique was right away, what we did was, I don't know if you remember, is we had a call set up. And I think you probably took the lead for that. I think most group projects, it starts with emails and, there's not a whole lot of talking. Might be a few texts here and there, but we were different. We wanted to connect right away, get to know each other and build that relationship that, that just grew over time. And I'm very lucky and fortunate to meet both of you and have the opportunity to learn from leaders who had nearly 30 years of law enforcement experience. At that time, which was 2020, right? Almost 3 years.
That's amazing. And likewise, we all learned from each other because I just thought there was such a synergy. And so I'll just go right into the first question about collaboration in law enforcement. I mean, so in LEPSL we did networking, and I did a podcast with Chief Cheryl Victorian, and we talked about relational policing and the value. But it's really that ability to connect and communicate and collaborate. You're a liaison. Specifically, let's look at right now, you're dealing with the storms and the weather disasters. And in your role, can you just kind of maybe talk a little bit about how those skills transition into your real world application?
Absolutely. And, if you look at the name of this program, it's public, law enforcement and public safety leadership, right? So it's not just the law enforcement specifically. it's also for public safety agencies. And my role involves in not just the police department, but also we have our Department of Emergency Services, which is in charge of communications dispatch, Department of Emergency Services, where they push out notifications to the public to notify when events are happening. And they really do an amazing job of connecting all city agencies and also city partners, such as BG&E, different departments, public utilities, public works, fire department, EMS, police department. And last couple of weeks, we had the winter storms in California. We need a lot of rain for sure, but we end up getting more than a once, and that caused a lot of emergency responses that needed, to keep the services to our communities, to make sure that we have our roadways open. If there's a flooding going on, make sure we send the right agencies. And we activated our emergency operations center, brought everybody in. I was representative for the police department, and I spent a lot of days and times in there. We finally downgraded to level 4, which is on standby. And I think we are expecting more rain to come tomorrow, and we might go to level 3 or level 2, depends on the need.
So from a mission critical standpoint, I mean, tell me your thoughts on just that skill set and being able to collaborate, being able to talk to people, to communicate well, you're going to talk with many people to kind of coordinate efforts, people you may have never met before. And now all of a sudden you have to align your efforts with their efforts, whether it's public works or the fire department or whomever. Talk a little bit about that. What ranking would you say that plays in modern public safety, that ability to communicate, collaborate, and coordinate?
It's essential. It's probably one of the most important skills that you need to have, is to communicate and work with other law enforcement leaders, other leaders that are involved in public safety. And communication is huge, especially not just communication alone, but having that relationship with people where you know the person that you're working with. You are in the same room and you are dealing with this situation that you have, whether it's a disaster, crisis, some type of natural disaster, where you need to find the right resources. Who do we send to? Who is supposed to take the lead for this incident? What can I help you? This is the resources that I have, and this is what I can do for you. So this is probably one of the most important things that I've learned last couple of weeks, is just the value of having those relationships, knowing those people, and when you need to use them, and just knowing how professional they are and the capabilities that they have, and the sacrifice that they do. We usually see on the law enforcement side, the sacrifice that we make to serve our communities. But there's a whole lot of other people that doing the same work, and you earn respect and appreciation for their work when they miss, dinners, when they are working around the clock to help our communities. It's just an amazing experience, and I'm fortunate to have that opportunity to play a small role.
Yeah, and we lucked out because you, me, and Scott, assigned randomly to a group, not knowing one another, all hit it off, got along great. But there's sometimes you're going to have to work with people that maybe there's just a little friction or just different personalities. And interestingly enough, in LEPSL, we have the conflict resolution in the dynamic world course, and so you kind of learn different conflict resolution styles. And your style is very amenable to working with others. And have you found that there've been sometimes you've really had to kind of hone those and use those skills to kind of, make the situation work?
Absolutely. Throughout, especially past 2 years, when I start, learning and practicing leadership, you got to use those skills. They come in really they become useful at times, especially when you're dealing with when there's a conflict or someone who has different priority, or they don't see the way that you see things. And that is where you need to you have to utilize those skills and find a way to get to know that person, not to make it personal, but find a way to understand them, and the first thing that I like to do is listen to them instead of trying to advocate, my point of view and try to sell what I'm trying to achieve. I would like to take that time and listen to that person to understand what the issue is. And that gives me an opportunity to, when I listen to that person, to also allow them to hear my side of where I'm coming from, and usually meet somewhere where we can agree and do the job that we want it to do, which is to help our communities and to serve our country.
That's awesome. Kind of just putting really a face to what every leader should be applying, but you're having to do it daily. And let's kind of now segue into staffing. So you've been operating at the San Francisco Police Department at a significant staffing deficiency for quite some time. And even though across the country, everyone's having trouble with recruiting and retaining, but you've been at a deficit prior to that. And now that's even just, that gap has widened even further. How are you in your roles, your leadership roles? Are you helping to accomplish the mission, maintaining morale, or just, doing truly more with less?
So staffing challenges is probably, I will say, one of the biggest challenges that my department is facing right now today. And unfortunately, this is not a new issue. We have been dealing this for the last several years. We were aware of this, and some way, we ended up at this situation right now where we're really struggling to find enough officers to do the job. And we're talking about the basic policing, which is, responding to calls for services. This has huge impact on our communities and also our officers. Let me start with our communities. They expect a service of level that's based on crime prevention and community policing. They expect when crime happens that law enforcement, police department is available to respond and take care of that situation. And right now, we're telling some of our communities that, certain types of crimes, when they occur, we're not able to respond to those. You do have to go online and file a police report. Or if you really wanted a police officer, it might take several hours before we can find a unit to go there. That's a huge challenge. And I want to point out one thing is that our command staff has done really an amazing job of dealing with this situation. They have been very creative, came up some solutions that sometimes I'm like, wow, this is, trying to figure out a way to continue to keep the city and the communities of San Francisco safe daily. One of the things that they did last year is mandatory overtime, which is one of the last solutions where you're forcing officers to work long shift, up to 16 hours a day. You're canceling their days off. So instead of hanging out with their family, doing things that will be good for their well-being, they come into work and do the same thing. The workload is expanded. So instead of having 10 officers do the job, now you have 2 or 3 officers doing that amount of job. That takes a toll on the officers. And that is where, as a lieutenant or anyone that holds my rank, the platoon commanders that are assigned to patrol, they play a huge role where they really need to figure out a way, number one, to continue the services, to keep people safe, but also take care of our people. People that get up every day, leave their homes, leave their families, put their lives at risk to serve others and to keep their morale high. And that's where you just need to figure out a way to take care of those people. And as you know, there's a little bit of gap between, police officers, which is the most important role in our department. Those are the people that go out there and deal with crime. They respond to calls. They drive code 3 to save someone's lives. They have supervisors, which is sergeant, and then you have a lieutenant, which is my rank. So there's a little gap in between, so you don't have that connection where you do see them. So you have to work harder. You need to get out of your office. You need to be out there on the street. And not only that, you need to get to know your people. Luckily, you don't have as many people as we would like to have. So whatever staffing that you have, you need to get to know them. You need to figure out a way to make sure they are mentally, physically prepared to come to work every day and do the job. And, talking about numbers, San Francisco, we have 10 police districts, and those 10 stations have 5 sectors. Each sector we staff with 2 officers, 1 patrol car that has 2 officers. So to have full staffing, you will need 10 officers daily handling calls. And on top of that, you need officers that are supposed to do foot beats, bicycle beats, community policing, where you have that opportunity where officers are able to interact with our community, with the people that are coming to visit our beautiful city in San Francisco. Our kids in school, we used to have school resource officers. Those were luxury. We don't have. Now, when lieutenants do their lineup on each shift, we have 3 different shifts: morning, swings, and nights. Instead of having 10 officers, if you have 1.5 car, that's average what you will end up with it. Sometimes, if you're lucky, you will have 3 cars filled, which is 6 officers instead of 10 officers. So yeah, that's a big drop off, and it's we're struggling, and there's no end in sight, and it's going to take more than just our leaders. I think it's going to take our communities. It's the community needs to get involved in it. Our elected officials need to get involved in it and find a way to solve this, issue that we have. It's the same way that we deal with crime. We all are aware that, law enforcement alone cannot solve crimes. We need our stakeholders. We need the mayor. We need the supervisors or city councils. We need our advocates. We need residents, everybody to get involved in it to target when we're trying to solve crime and reduce any disturbance that we have. So the same way, I think it's going to take those everybody to come as one and deal with this issue. And I don't see that happening anytime soon, but I'm hopeful.
Well, there's so much to unpack on that. And obviously that's really where leadership needs to shine, because you have a situation where you're operating at a deficiency, and to be able to create proper public safety, it's predicated on having correct amount of what I've always said: staffing, support, and resources. And without that, you could be an expert mechanic, but if you don't have the right tools to fix the engine or the right parts, you may know how to do it, but you're going to fall short. And I really feel that's what your personality and your approach is so desperately needed, especially right now where you're operating at such a deficiency. And, everything intersects in law enforcement, and we talk officer wellness, and it's obviously one of the pillars of 21st century policing, but it can never just be a box to check. It can never be a buzzword. It has to be infused into everything. And just with officers working 16 hours, it goes completely contrary to wellness, because there's the fatigue factor. There's the ability that they're disconnected from their family and their other outlets. So kudos to you, because right now, from what you're operating with in terms of significant reduction in staffing, the leadership you and your colleagues are providing, trust me when I say, is huge for the women and men that you lead.
Thank you, much appreciated. And luckily, a lot of our community understand and supports the law enforcement. So I want to make sure I get that point in there. When you talk to our communities, they want more police officers. They do support that, and we just need to find a way to really work with the few elected officials that are a little bit hesitant or do not really understand the value that law enforcement has in our society.
Yeah, and I think you speak to a lot of the listeners and viewers, because in some way or another, they're dealing with variations of that. And I think, you're in San Francisco. We may have a viewer watching from somewhere on the East Coast, somewhere in the Midwest, somewhere, and they're saying, okay, they're struggling with those same challenges. But as we always do in the profession, we always meet those challenges, and it just takes high levels of leadership and that advanced, we talk about the program because everything ties back to, we learn it theoretical and academic, but they're all things that are relevant in the real world. And it's great to see how you're applying them. And this actually segues to our next topic, and it's something that's near and dear to you and something you wanted to discuss: mentoring. Mentorships are huge right now, because now you have to inspire, you have to grow the next generation of leaders, you have to keep people's morale up when there's a lot of things working against it. Please share your thoughts with why mentoring is important and what you're doing at your agency with that, please.
Thank you for actually giving me this opportunity to talk about mentorship, and just a little bit of background. Why am I interested in mentorship? And the reason is, number one, the reason I'm here today talking to you and having this opportunity actually to do what I'm doing is having an opportunity to be mentored and learn from others. And I'm extremely lucky to get that opportunity. But I'm also aware that a lot of other officers do not have that opportunity that I had. For example, when I was a police officer, I was a brand new officer, one of the most senior officers on my night watch. He was doing undercover, and he knew that I was interested in learning how to do narcotic investigations. And he started, bringing me in when they doing operations, to the point where, I become an undercover officer, and learn how to go out there by, narcotics, make arrests, write reports, and learn not only that, but just to learn the investigation involved in it. If I did not have that officer come approach me and give me that opportunity to learn under him, I'll have never get that opportunity. Same way, becoming an FTO and going through the rank, getting promoted. And even when I got promoted, I became a sergeant. So sergeant role is a little bit different for San Francisco than other department. We have an opportunity to do either investigation, where you become an investigator, and that's all you do, or you could supervise, go to patrol and supervise officers. I was more interested in the investigation portion, and I really wanted to just, do investigation, did my time, retire like everybody else. And, that was my goal until, one day I'm working and I get a call from one of our deputy chiefs. And he's like, hey, I have an opportunity for you to do some projects. And, do you want to work for me? And that opportunity, exposure, learning from him and understanding what leadership, what command staff do, what the next level of management, lieutenant and above, do, that is what got me to, okay, now I want to do more than where I was setting my my goals. So what is this program that I wanted to do? It was actually, I wrote it on my capstone that this is what I wanted to do when I graduate. And unfortunately, COVID happened and a couple of things happened, and I've been working on it. But never give up. And I'm hoping I will have, I'll complete this hopefully this year. And I hope I get the support of my command staff so we can start implementing it. Just to give you a little bit what entails about this program. So what we need to have is create a mentorship committee who comes up with the program, and the program will be, you will have mentors and mentees. Mentors could have any rank. It could be an officer, it could be a sergeant, it could be all the way to the chief of police. And mentees will have an opportunity to be a mentee, or they could also be a mentor, or they could do both at the same time. This mentorship committee is to match mentee and mentors. For example, you have a mentee who wants to learn investigation, and then you find someone from the investigation and you connect to those two. The program length is, it has to be at least 6 months. And then we're hoping to have the mentor and mentee to meet at least 5 times during that period of time. One of the best ways to learn is exposure, people getting that opportunity to actually see things done. So if someone wants to join our SWAT team and he's being mentored by someone who's already in there, they can have an opportunity to go over there, see what their day looks like, see what type of work needed to be put in to get to that level. Same way if you want to become FTO, if you want to become a sergeant, if you want to become a lieutenant, if you want to become, and I'm hoping to get the buy-in of everybody. And I think the benefits are going to be huge. I believe it's going to increase job satisfaction. People will know that they have an opportunity, that they could find a way to learn. Back in the days, the only way that you get those opportunities is just knowing someone, right? Who where you work, and it will open up all this new young generation that do not have that connections, that are, they don't even want to talk to people. Maybe, it will give them an opportunity for them to go online, fill the survey, and we will connect them with someone that, and they can apply it again. If they want to find different mentor, they will have the opportunity to do that. Or if they want to extend it with the same one, so that will be an option. So it won't be limited to a 6 month. And sometimes those relationships will last years. I got lucky to meet you, and I'm going to bring Scott's name, almost 3 years ago. And to this date, I do call you guys, when things are happening in San Francisco, and talk to you and get your opinion. And, sometimes you just listen, and that's what you need.
Wow. Well, thank you. That's huge. And, we're all trying to navigate the same challenges and different nuances. And I think that mentorship idea is amazing. And again, to have a formal process that is not just haphazard, where someone has to hope they meet the right person to give them the correct career trajectory or assistance. As we speak, the sergeant that I reported to day one was my mentor, and is still my friend and mentor. And even through my roles as chief, I would always, because he was a great leader, and I would always ask him thoughts and ideas. And even though he didn't do the chief role, he was a leader, and that's what counted, and just common sense, and had wisdom. And I have coffee with him every week. So like you said, even though maybe a program will be 6 months, it could last indefinitely. And interestingly, I did a podcast with retired Assistant Chief Johnny Reddick from the California Highway Patrol, and she was a big advocate of mentors and having advocates to help you out in your career. And I think it's huge, and I think it's something I think every agency should hopefully go to. And the fact that you're spearheading it within yours, I think is just going to evolve the San Francisco Police Department and the officers in it.
Oh, thank you. That's the hope, Dennis. Definitely, I have confidence that knowing the folks that I work for, My bosses, they're amazing. Some of the nicest people that you could ever meet. They really wanted what's best for the officers, and they will go out of their way to do anything that will help our people.
And from a philosophy point of view, when people retire and you look at legacies, there's a saying: the only thing you take is what you leave, and what you leave behind is qualified, skilled people to take on the roles that you had, and maybe even expand it and excel it, and hopefully do exactly that. So really, what you leave behind is the best thing that you could hope for from a career. And I think through mentorship, that's the way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
As we switch gears a little bit here, there's a lot of administrative aspects to what you do. And you're a liaison for the collaborative 278 reforms. In New York, we call them Executive Order 203, but it had a lot to do with the reimagining of policing and public safety. And can you just talk a little bit about that? Like, obviously, you're spearheading a mentorship program. You're a liaison with the emergency management. You teach at the academy. You an adjunct at Marin College. You do so much, and you're also working with the 278 reforms. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So those reforms, just a little bit of background for the viewers, anyone that is not familiar with San Francisco. In 2015, and I think early 2016, we had several officer-involved shootings that were involved subjects who did not have firearms. Obviously, that, the public, some of our communities, complained about it. Our elected officials, the mayor, and we needed to do something about those. How do we prevent that happening again? And one thing that we did was we invited DOJ, Department of Justice, COPS office, community-oriented policing services, to come into San Francisco and just assess all our policies and procedures and practices and take a look at it. So they spend probably somewhere 6 to 8 months looking at everything from training to different types of policies. And in October 2016, they come up this report where they presented to the department and to the public, where they had findings and recommendations. So the total recommendations that you talked about, 272, those recommendations that the department need to be done. Department did not shy away those challenges. We had a new chief of police a few months later. I think our current chief was sworn in January the following year, 2017. And, one of the first, I think when he was sworn in, what he told the public and community was, I'm up for the challenge. I will make sure that this gets done. And we started working on, having different types of groups coming in and coming up a way to comply with those recommendations. We didn't say we will do half of it or some of it. We basically agreed to do all of them. I and another lieutenant, at that time, I was a sergeant actually, and a lieutenant, we were involved in finding number 79, which had 3 recommendations. And I'm going to quickly read what that said. So finding 79 of DOJ COPS office stated, evaluation of employee performance is not an institutionalized practice in the SFPD. SFPD personnel interviewed did not recall having or conducting performance evaluation within the department. And I'll give you an example of this. I remember when I finished FTO, I had a really awesome sergeant who did, my performance evaluations every week, every month, and he stayed on top of it. So when you finish field training officer, you get transferred to another station and you will be on probation for a year. So he told me, hey, if you don't get any evaluations, just don't go out there asking for it. Most sergeants and, most bosses will not do it. And he was right. I think I had, during that 12-month of period, you're supposed to get one on each every month as a probationary officer. I don't know, I had maybe 4 or so, not too many. And throughout your career, when you complete probation, we do semi-annual performance evaluation. Every 6 months, you're supposed to get one, and you rarely get one. And it depends on if you have a new captain that's kind of new to the station that directs the lieutenants and sergeants to do it. So you will get one here and there. It's very informal. You don't have any sit downs. There's no expectations. If you're doing great, you get thumbs up. Obviously, there's a lot of informal counseling going on, but that formal process did not exist in the department. And I felt it was disservice to our hardworking officers, and they needed that. And I'm guilty of it too. When I become a sergeant, I also part of the culture. I didn't really value of the importance of performance evaluations. So I supervised 2 amazing officers, probably 2 of the smartest police officers I have seen in my whole life when I was a sergeant. And both of them took the sergeant's test, and they did really well. And they end up, so before you get promoted, officers get an opportunity to go take a look at their personal file, which has all their commendations, performance evaluations, any other letters that need to be in their personal files. So they all went over there, and guess what? There was none. I got a call, one of them asking me if I'd done one. And that was a learning experience for me. And to that point, I was like, not only am I going to do something about myself, but we need to change this to do the right thing for those. So I was part of that. And let me see if I could find the 3 recommendations. So the 3 recommendations were: SFBD should adopt policy and implement practice completing regular performance evaluations of all department employees. SFBD leadership needs to create a system to ensure that all personnel are being evaluated at least twice a year. SFBD should use performance evaluations as an evaluation factor in promotional process. So those are the 3 recommendations that I worked with, along with several other hardworking SFBD members. Unfortunately, we're missing. We need to get technology involved in it. We're doing paper performance evaluation right now. So that's actually, that finding is one of the few ones that we haven't completed yet. But I do want to give credit to the chief and his command staff. They went through a lot to actually make sure this continues. As you know, when the Obama administrations ended and the new administration took over, DOJ decided to stop and say, like, these are not mandatory. They were a voluntary process. So they stopped helping our department, and we were left ourselves. Where do we go? So we were in a limbo for a while, figuring out who's going to oversee, because you need that independent eye that needs to make sure that you're doing the things that you say the right way. And we looked for one. We found the California Department of Justice, DOJ, and they are helping. And we're doing really amazing job of when it comes to reforms. That's an area that we exceeded probably any other department in California and probably in the country when it comes to reforms. So yeah, we're lucky to have that leadership to continue that.
Yeah, that's huge. In New York State, we have New York State accreditation, and one of the critical standards is evaluations. And they're so important because, obviously you would be doing the right thing. You're a good employee and a good leader and a solid, strong representation of the profession. There are people that evaluations are important because they're not along that caliber, and evaluation can get them right back on track. Or sometimes if they're not willing to, do what's expected, then the profession will be determined it's not for them and they'll be moved along. And then again, for promotions, if people are doing really good work, that's a great place for them to be documented, and for you to be an officer or of any rank to go into their files and see what they've done, where they've improved, where they can use improvement. So for me, from an administrative point of view, evaluations are an amazing tool. Again, someone who's going a little bit off course, it corrects them. Someone who's doing great, you get to give them a pat on the back and kudos. And someone, if they're usually doing good and now you see some deficiency, it alerts you to maybe an officer wellness issue and something's going on or a change in their life. And again, it's the consistency of those evaluations that they're being done, not just by one lieutenant or captain or whomever does them, but by everyone, and that their rankings are done by a pragmatic system, not just by favoritism. And there's so much to it. I mean, we can do a whole podcast on evaluations, but I was just taking it all in. And kudos to you for doing such an important part in the reforms, because to me, evaluations are huge. They're a credit to the hardworking officers. They're a tool to get those who are sliding on track. And they're just also a good early warning system for possible problems. So great job on that.
Absolutely. We're not there yet, and hopefully we'll get there, in the near future, for sure.
But as our time is winding down, leadership, that's what we're all about. That's what the program, the LEPSL program, is about. And that's what, obviously you embody what leadership is about. And just in our conversation, the listeners and viewers can readily tell that. But I just want to ask, for those out there listening, what are your final thoughts, leadership things that you think are like some snapshots of what people should know, and any books or podcasts that you listen to and or recommend?
Leadership. That's a topic that, I've been really spending a lot of time last couple of years learning since I started the LEPSL program. And my personal thoughts is that, leadership in law enforcement is different. It's a little bit different. We're responsible for public safety, and that is for everybody. It's not for just one group or one entity, so we're responsible for all our communities' public their safety. And for that reason, I'm a strong believer that any leader that's going to lead law enforcement or any position where they have the power to be responsible for people's safety, they should be apolitical. It's harder to be apolitical when you've been kind of getting a lot of pressure from different political groups, especially big cities. It's easy to go after law enforcement. Especially last few years. We're not perfect. We have seen a lot of mistakes that are made, but we're also have done an amazing job of trying to learn from it, trying to do the right things. We show that we're willing to change, we're willing to evolve. But the leader that I look up to and I would like to see is someone that has values that they believe in and can find a way to keep those values and believe system that they have during difficult times. When it's easy, anybody can be a leader, anybody can lead an organization and do the things that need it. It's when it gets tough, when you are on that hot seat, right? One of the books that I would recommend will include one of those leaders that found themselves in a hot seat. So when you are in that hot seat, when you are being blamed, you need to have the courage to stand up, to admit when your organization makes a mistake. When you make a mistake, don't hide behind, it's our favorite phrase that we like to use back in the days, we're investigating, it's open investigation, we will get back to you. That's the community does not want to hear that. When they see, a video that speaks itself, just if it's wrong, say it's wrong. On the other hand, when your organization is attacked, when you're accused to things that may not be accurate. Or, when when your officers are under attack, you need to stand up and defend those that work for you, those that you lead. You need to have that courage to stand up and defend those officers. And you don't want to, I'm not saying you have to, go word by word with, some elected official, but you need to put it out there that, this is not who we are, and this is not what our people are about. So I think that's what we need to, and it will be nice to have a way where, leaders' jobs were not dependent on whoever is in office, right? It will be nice to give the police chiefs or any law enforcement leader a contract with that says, you cannot be fired without a cause, not based on, what you say or what you're doing, or, who you agree with, and that's what I would like to see. And that's, I think, something that happens sometimes, but I think it's missing in some organizations. As for books, so I've read a lot of books, but I'm going to give you 3 books, and I'll tell you why. So the first book is, I read it at a point where I think I had like 10 years in the department, and I hit a wall where, I was like, do I really want to do this job? And, kind of start blaming everybody for what's going on with the department that had nothing to do with me. And I read, it's called Leadership and Self-Deception. It's a book by Arbinger Institute. And it kind of got me back to thinking about things that I can do instead of blaming others. What can I do to take responsibility for my actions? What do I need to do actually to make the change? So that's really a good book for anybody that, is a little bit of disgruntled, to say, or, they're not happy about where they're at. Any supervisor that wants to read that, or leader, that's a really good book. The second book that I usually give all my sergeants, I actually got this, one of my former lieutenants when I was on patrol. Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willing. I'm sure a lot of people have read that, so I do recommend for that, for any leader that's leading the troops out there, how to be successful, how to do your job. It's empowering. It's a powerful book, and that's amazing. As for leaders that are leading organizations, one of the books that they should probably take a look at, it's called Black in Blue, authored by former retired Seattle Police Department Chief Carmen Best. So I had an opportunity to go to an event last October where she was the keynote speaker, and they gave us the book, the event hosted by Noble, National Black Officers Executive Organization. That's what it stands for sure. So I had an opportunity to listen to her speak, and it was eye-opening. Things that she has been through. She talks about her history. How she decided to join the military, then become a law enforcement, and then go through the ranks to become an acting chief, and almost get passed over for the job when she was the most qualified candidate. And then dealing with Seattle in 2020 and what happened, and the actions that, she talks about what she did. And there's a lot of lessons that we can learn from those. And I'm happy that she's actually chose to share her story. So that's a really, really good book. And finally, podcast. This is my favorite one, and I will tell you why. Not in a biased way. So definitely Blue Leadership. If for those of you that have not had an opportunity, please listen to the last 20. They are fun to listen to. It's more of a casual conversation. But what makes it better is obviously you, but also the people that you bring in, different types of leaders that, I listened to the chief that you talked about, Cheryl, from Texas Police Department. And then you had Tom Chaplin, retired police chief of Walnut Creek. Just the names goes on. It's really amazing people that you have interviewed so far, and there's so many lessons that we can learn from it. If they need more, they could listen to another one that I listened to is Reducing Crime by Jerry Ratcliffe. He also gets a lot of good law enforcement folks to come to his, and he has a cup of coffee and talks to them, and it's a pretty casual, some background noise in there here and there, but it's fun, and it's nice to hear those people.
What an awesome answer on leadership. And, talk about leading in crisis. And you're right. It's easy to lead when everything's good, but to stand up for it and to have as a leader, I think every leader needs to have a line in the sand and to know that if their values are compromised or expected to be compromised, then they have to say, well, then it's time for them to step aside. And true leadership is really looking out for those who are on the front lines and making it better. And I mean, that's all the things you were talking about. And I got to meet Chief Best at this past Noble conference myself and talk to her a little bit about her time in Seattle. And it was a short but a very powerful conversation. And again, a definition of a true leader. Your podcast with Jocko Willink, or the book Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. He also has a podcast out called Extreme Ownership, so people may want that. But Lieutenant, everything you said it was so much in a short period of time. I mean, we really covered so much from, dealing with the staffing deficiencies to, your mentoring and to the reforms and the collaborations that you've done in LEPSL and how it transitions into the real world and concluding with your thoughts on leadership. I have no doubt, should you choose, you will be a chief of an agency. And I look forward to having you back as a guest to talk about that when that day comes, if not sooner. But Lieutenant, thank you so much. I mean, Sarah's going to come in and close us out, but so much that you've covered. And it was an honor to be able to have this podcast with you.
Thank you, Dennis. It was an honor to be on your podcast.
Yes, thank you both so much. What a great conversation. And to our viewers, we appreciate you taking the time out of your day to meet the law enforcement heroes and leaders who are a part of the MS LEPSL family. If you'd like to watch previous episodes of Blue Leadership, you can find them on the video tab of our Facebook page, or by searching USD Blue Leadership on YouTube. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you next time.